if you saw them borrow, if you saw them, and I'll help you understand who them is. If you saw them borrowing, you will borrow too. If you saw them borrowing, you will borrow too. Them is who we're about to dissect right now. But before we get into it, I'd like to first start of all by telling you that this video is proudly sponsored by Gaia. Now, let me tell you a bit about Gaia. Gaia is an amazing all-in-one streaming platform on all matters consciousness, manifestation, wellness, and, you know, everything that we talk about, they post about it. Now, it's like the YouTube. It's like the YouTube. They're like the, they're like the YouTube of manifestation. So for you, if you're like me, and when you're doing research, you have like 15 tabs on, you have like 1,000 pages on different books scrambled across the table, just trying to pick information from one source to another. Gaia is the place, and they are the people for you. So you can start your journey on them by joining them through the link in my bio or the description box. Now, back to business. I'm looking for my duster. Here it is. Back to business. I've said it very clearly. If you saw them borrowing, you will borrow. Now, you're probably wondering, Tina, who are these them? Them are your significant figures. Not your significant other. I know you're single. Your significant figures. This, let me just open these things once and for all so that I stop switching. By the way, did I take the time to show you guys my nails? Yeah. These are your parents, your guardians. Quite frankly, people who had a high emotional rank in your subconscious as you were in your formative stages when you were young, the people you looked up to. Now, this might sound very rude. Of course it is. If you saw them borrowing, you will borrow. And now you're wondering, Tina, why are you being so inconsiderate? First of all, understand, the universe doesn't care about your sentimentality. Neither does it care about your emotions. It cares about your story. And the funny thing about this, if not the sad thing about this, is your story was affected by them. I'm going to give you a good example. Now you're a grown adult, but for some reason, your rent gives you stress. Now, this is not me being weird. Everyone has stress for rent. I can confess, rent is stressful. Who wants to sleep outside? But then again, for you, something about the due date for rent triggers you. Like, even if you do have the money in your bank account, you know you're sorted for like even 3-4 months, you still can't help but feel so stressed when it comes to the concept of rent. I'm not going to be a destiny reader, but there's a high possibility your parents were stressed about rent. If anything, there's a sharper possibility that you witnessed being kicked out, a lock on the door by the landlord, or you saw your parents stressing out every time the landlord came around, and they would tell you, go and tell them I'm not home. Enda waambia landlord mimi siko kwa nyumba. You saw that. And you might laugh it off and think it's funny, but let me tell you, that shit is haunting you right now. So you might think you're stressed about rent, but you're actually stressed about the landlord who was terrorizing your parents back in 2013. You might think you're stressed about rent, but you're subconsciously stressed about the landlord who came to knock at your door when you're in class 3 and your father had to run to the bedroom and told you, go and tell them siko kwa nyumba. You people think you moved on, but you didn't. See, when you see me, you know I'm about to break your walls. So grab a handkerchief because it's about to get serious. Let me give you a better example. If rent is not funny enough, some of you, even as much as you're with healthy people in relationships, India, healthy relationship, for some reason, you can't help but feel hesitant about confrontation. Now, when I talk about confrontation, I'm not talking about verbal abuse or the throwing of things and the throwing of hands like some of you do in your toxic relationships. I beg, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about confrontation in the sense of expressing your need. Expressing need. Saying no. Asking for help. You're probably wondering, how is this tied to my parents and guardians? There is a high possibility you witnessed conflict between the people of significant importance in your formative years when there was confrontation. So for your subconscious mind, asking or expressing your need, them expressing their needs, came with violence, it came with arguments, it came with discomfort and tension in the household. So of course it will be dangerous for you. Of course you won't tell your boyfriend, you know what, I feel like this relationship is one-sided, because your mother tried to say that and your father landed with a couple of blows. You know, sometimes I talk about these things and I feel like I'm making it into a joke, but it's serious. But at the same time, like, it's me. How are you supposed to tell your man, babes, you know, I saw this nice bag in the shopping mall and I would like for you to buy it, even though you know they can afford it. It won't chip their wallet. They can afford it. But you won't ask. Why? Because you growing up in that house, anything that was related to asking, that led to the expenditure of money was met with a very harsh and stern no. Or rather, a very negative or painful response. You are just always asking for money. Should we buy you a new shoe or should we pay rent? Should we buy you a new shoe or should we pay rent? If you've been asked that question yourself, you're certified to be traumatized, so please come for therapy. So do you see what I'm trying to say? If you saw them beg, you will beg. If you saw them suffer, you will suffer. If you saw them cry, you will cry. Now the funny thing, I keep saying the funny thing as if this shit is funny. It's not funny, Tina. Anyway, now let us go into why their borrowing might lead to your borrowing. As you are growing up, as you are in your formative stages, ulipokuwa mtoto mchanga, ulipokuwa kadogo size ya jegi, yani size ya jug, when you were the size of a thermos flask, you did not have a sense of I. You had no sense of me. Your nervous system did not have a sense of this is me and that is them. No, you only had a sense of we. Community. Now, even as much as community is good, when you look at it from a physiological point of view, your nervous system took community as learning. So because there was no me or I to your nervous system as you grew up, because there was only we, it primarily learned from observation. Why do you think when your mother was in a bad mood, you would be very scared? Why do you think when your father came home tense, before he could even open his mouth, you ran to the bedroom? Why do you think the moment people got angry in the house, before they even told you we are angry, you could sense that anger, you could sense that tension, and you would run and look for safety? It's because your nervous system was constantly looking for threats. Understand? Your nervous system is not looking for good things. Your nervous system is not interested in good things, Abby. Your nervous system is only interested in staying and keeping you alive. So because there was no I or me, there was only we. Your nervous system primarily shaped itself through the mode of learning, memory. So when you saw your father tense up because of the landlord, your nervous system flagged landlords as red flags. It's really that simple. You people like to complicate things. You thought it was a whole paragraph. Because your father got stressed and could even disarrange the entire house because the landlord is coming for 18,000 in the morning. Your nervous system, as young as you are 5 or even 10 or 13, your nervous system automatically flagged this landlord as a red flag. Because if it is dangerous to them, understand that when you're young, when you're still growing, when you do not have a completely formed sense of I, your nervous system learns from the people that are important to you. In this case, your parents. In this case, your guardian. The people who are 99% of the time around you. So when your guardian, when the person, it's not a case of love. Please allow my boat to dance. It is not a case of love. It is a case of connection. It is a case of subconscious figure authority. Are we together? So as long as these people who are around you 99% of the time were stressed, your nervous system learned from their stress. Stress was not understood. It was copied. Get it? That's why I'm telling you, if you saw them borrow, you will borrow too. And we're going to get into that deeper. So as we are here, and to make this nonsense even funnier, there's something around There's an interesting concept, yeah? When you watch someone go through pain, when you watch someone suffer, when you watch someone hurt, what happens? You have a sense of empathy for them. Now, this empathy is you watching and sympathizing with them, but it is not you taking their pain. That's the difference, because there's gates in your neural networks. There's a gating mechanism in your brain that allows you to observe without absorbing. But if you see, for some of you, even in your grown years, if that gating mechanism has not been fully structured, or it has a sense of ish, you'll find that you feel pain when other people feel pain. That's why people like saying you're empath. You're not just empath, you're biologically wired to process other people's pain. Call it what you will. That's why you keep getting stuck in toxic relationships, because you confuse absorption with connection. Hallelujah, blessed be the name of the Father. So as you are young, in all infants, in everyone's brain when we are young, that gating mechanism that enables separation of pain, observation without absorption, it was still formative. This means high tension, high stress, high discomfort was automatically interpreted as your own. Now, this is where your nervous system copies. So when your father gets stressed, when your mother gets stressed, when your big sister gets stressed, when your auntie gets stressed, you automatically get stressed, and you don't understand where this stress is coming from. That's why children who grow up in highly abusive households tend to be very perceptible to other people's states and emotions. They end up getting stuck in toxic relationships, in abusive, because their nervous system has been wired to sense before it can understand. And because that's all that they are familiar with, they end up getting stuck in those patterns. I say this with a deep heaviness because I understand some of you are stuck in these situations, not because you want to, but because you do not understand. So this is part of why you're stuck with these toxic people. It is because growing up, your nervous system learned from memory. And because it learned from memory, automatically you learned that feeling someone else's pain is an indication of of connection. So you stay in those circumstances thinking you can fix that because you're actually trying to fix yourself. Because there's no sense of me or them, there's just a we. You're subconsciously fixing yourself through fixing them. I know. Take it in. Take it in. I'm even sweating. My makeup is literally shedding off my face, but just take it in. So this being the case, how does the them borrowing and you borrowing come into play? It comes into play because of, let us understand this one thing first. Nataka tuelewane. In Swahili, that means I want us to agree. Nataka tuelewane. To the subconscious mind, there is no concept of time. To the logical mind, to the logical brain, there is the past, the present, and the future. So there's 1, 2, 3. It's like terminus. But now to the subconscious brown. To the subconscious mind, there's only the concept of now. So that being the case, even if this event, I'm going to use the example of being kicked out. Even if you saw you experienced being kicked out, like your parents were not able to pay rent and the door was closed and the landlord came and it was a whole thing and the chairs were carried, like, and you could tell things were not okay. You're asking your mom, what is going on? Mom is just telling you, usijali, tutaenda kulala kwa auntie. I sympathize with you. If you experience that that experience of being kicked out, even if it was back in the year 2010, 2009, 2004, 2013, this to the logical, now this is where the times come in. This to the logical brain is the past, right? But to the emotional brain, this is now. Because if you go back, if you revisit this memory of being kicked out, you will automatically feel stress. You'll automatically feel anxiety. You'll automatically feel angry. Because like, why are they being mean to my parents? You will automatically feel pain. You will automatically feel fear. Whatever emotions you felt in the moment of you being kicked out when you were young are the exact same emotions you will feel in the presence of memory. And because emotions have surfaced automatically to the subconscious mind, emotions indicate direct experience. So because these emotions are coming up, oh my God, this thing is happening again. This thing is happening again. I'm being kicked out. And because that's what you're feeling, that's what's happening subconsciously. And now this is where most people get trapped. Is because this thing is happening now. What happens is to the universe, oh my God, when we talk about the universe being very amoral, you need to understand this works in your favor and against you if you do not know how to alchemize this principle. So listen up carefully. Because the universe is amoral. The universe does not care about your sentimentality or your past it only cares about your story. Your story is communicated in form of presence. So when you're revisiting these memories of being kicked out back in 2010, 2009, 2004, 2013, and you're feeling fear, stress, anxiety, anger, and pain, and your nervous system is clamping up, and emotionally you're feeling overwhelmed, and you feel like crying, and you feel stressed, however you process your stress, this emotional oversurge automatically affects your signal, what you guys call frequency. And because it affects your signal stroke frequency, it indicates to the universe that this is happening. Listen, it does not communicate that this is what happened. It communicates that this is happening right now. Why do you think that even when you make a lot of money, you still end up getting back in the same state of being broke? Why do you think that regardless of how many high-paying clients you have, you still end up not having money for rent next month? Why do you think regardless of all the efforts you're making, you still end up in abusive and toxic relationships? It's because it doesn't matter, oh my God, my hair. It doesn't matter what you do. As long as those emotions are there, to the universe, this is happening. And because the universe is very responsive and it focuses on what is happening now, it will echo this. It will echo this. That is why the chances of you being kicked out in adulthood of your house are very high if you were kicked out when you were 13 or 10 or 8. The chances of you being in a toxic and abusive relationship, even the board is agreeing, are very high if you were in an abusive and toxic household. The whole thing we like to say, oh, your daddy issues echo in your relationships, your mommy issues echo in your relationships. It's not your parents. It's the experience that you had with them or in their care that is replaying itself. It's what we call the trauma loop. It's a freaking trauma loop. And in this case, when we talk about trauma, listen to me very carefully. When we talk about trauma, we're not talking about no damn, we're not talking about no goddamn typical Western therapy trauma. Am I invalidating trauma as like trauma, clinical trauma? No. But in the context of the topic that we are in, trauma simply refers to one thing: a highly emotional experience that led to the restructuring or the programming of your subconscious mind. Take notes, people. Of your subconscious mind. That's trauma. So when you look at it from this context, you realize being kicked out when you were 13, trauma. Let me just watch and say amazing. Let me say these things. Being kicked out when you were 13, trauma. Being hit on the head for asking for a new pair of shoes, trauma. Being beaten due to expression, trauma. Anything that happened that led to the adoption of a story, the belief of a narrative, is what we call trauma. So when you hear people say, oh, I can't seem to change this pattern, I'm stuck, I don't know what to do, it's because you're stuck in a freaking trauma loop. And these things are so sneaky. Because if you look even at, if maybe you're addicted to drinking, you're addicted to this. Yes, that. You're addicted to whatever thing you're addicted to. Understand that you need to go back to your past and ask yourself, with regards to this thing that I am addicted to, what narrative am I escaping, suppressing? Because most of the time, suppression leads to expression in whatever way. So what you suppress emotionally, you will express physically through addiction, through toxic attachment, through, yes, exactly. So you need to ask yourself, what am I addicted to? Drinking, this, validation, nonchalant people. And once you've been able to figure that out, you go back to your past and ask yourself, what were my experiences? What experiences did I have that might be relevant to my current state in terms of this, the narrative that you're dealing with, the story that you're trying to run away from, the emotions you do not understand. And once you've been able to nini that, you'll be able to see how you're tied to this thing. This is not me telling you can stop drinking in one day or you can stop this thing in one day, but this is me telling you that a lot of the work that you're escaping is being manifested in the things that you can't escape. Ooh, my God, did I say that? Did Tina say that? Mimi ni mwerevu. Oh my gosh. Let me write it for you. A lot of the work, listen, a lot of the work you're escaping, is expressed in the things or circumstances you can't seem to escape. Someone get me an Oscar award, because what the hell was this? That literally solved 99% of the world's problems, if you understand it well. A lot of the work you're escaping is expressed in the things or circumstances you can't seem to escape. Whether it's money, relationships, success, addiction, people pleasing, whatever it is. Whoop, I almost fell. Whatever the work you're escaping is expressed in the things or circumstances you can't seem to escape. Let it marinate on that board. So this being the case, do you now understand why I'm saying if they begged, you will beg? If they were kicked out, you will be kicked out. If they were afraid, you will be afraid. It's not weakness. It's humans. It's human. It's how we're built. It's how we are. Because humans, we are primarily social beings. This being the case, acceptance of uniformity ensures long-term survival to the primal state, like down to us being primal beings. Yeah, conformity and uniformity ensures survival in the long run. So don't blame your nervous system for mirroring that stress. Ask yourself, how can I change this? Now, you change this by first analyzing what shape your nervous system took. When I talk about shape, a lot of you because nowadays, everyone and their grandmother is talking about the nervous system. Everyone and their uncle is talking about nervous system. But why is it that despite all this information on nervous system, people are still stuck? It's because people are talking about nervous system from the point of it being some sort of broken machine, instead of understanding that the nervous system is just a child who was learning. She or he or they, regarding your gender, your preference, whatever terminology you want to use, your pronouns. She's not broken. Your nervous system is not broken. He's not broken. He is simply, he or she is simply moving off of what they learned. It's like a child who learned, because look at it from this point of view. You were taught how to say the alphabet when you were back in third grade, or no, I think in preschool. That's how you pronounce the alphabet up until when you're 40. So when you take that concept and you extrapolate it onto your nervous system mechanism, you'll understand why you move the way you move. Because when you get triggered, you don't act your age, you act the age that you were hurt. Hallelujah. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Because your nervous system determines let me fix this. Your nervous system determines quite literally 99%, if not 100% of your operations. Believe it or not. You don't do what you know. You don't do what you're supposed to do. You do what you know. And what you know is tied to what you've experienced. And what you've experienced is tied to memory. So there it is. So this being the case, You focus on your nervous system because it learned. It's time to learn again. So when I talk about shape, I mean, look at the trajectory your nervous system used to take in the moments of high emotion. For example, if growing up, situations around confrontation or expression led to violence or negativity or all these things, you subconsciously learned to stay quiet. Don't you think this is a part of your nervous system keeping you safe? Trying to calm down the physical activity. Because if you speak up, you'll be the center of attention. And once you're the center of attention, you'll be the absorber. Now you'll be the punching bag for everyone. So your nervous system automatically takes the shape of you keeping quiet in terms of perception of threat perception levels. Threat. Let me confirm if this mic is on before it. Okay. In terms of threat perception levels, you need to ask yourself, growing up, how susceptible were you to sensing other people's states, to being how do I put it, not predicting, but to being very keen on things going wrong, because there's a high possibility your nervous system was always on edge. So whatever nervous system dysregulation looks like, let that thing dance. Whatever way nervous system dysregulation manifests for you, it is important for you to understand that once you can see it and give it a face, now you can be able to rewrite the story. And while we're at it, don't forget to book yourself don't forget to book yourself a call via the link in my bio or my description box. Yes, as we continue. Rewrite the story, because your nervous system needs proof that you're safe. Your nervous system needs proof that you're okay. Your nervous system needs proof that, you know what, if I'm going to let go of this old pattern, I need to trust that this new one will work. So you need to give your nervous system proof, and this proof comes through what? Capacity building. I've talked about this in the previous video. You can go watch it. But quite frankly, the universe responds to your capacity, not your capability. And your capacity is what is going to help regulate your nervous system. Because your nervous system is not going to adopt a new story it does not believe will keep you safe and alive. Are we together? We have a workshop coming up on the 27th of March 2026 on capacity building for high impact productivity. Make sure you register. The registration amount is 30 USD. The link is in my bio description. If you're seeing this video way past or way later, after the 27th of March 2026, you can get a pre-recording of the session. Still in the description box. Yes. Otherwise, just stay aware and remember that if they begged, you will beg. If they suffered, you will suffer. Unless you make the unconscious conscious. And if you know, you know. I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.